Minnesota Twins bullpen comes up big in Monday night's win against the Detroit Tigers, and we learned a little bit more about how manager Derek Shelton uses the bullpen, including how Cole Sands is in prime position to be the primary closer for the Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Twins. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Twins writer for Zone Coverage and a lifelong Twins fan, hopefully just like you. We're still here through this whole thing, so I think you can give yourself a badge of honor as a Twins fan today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we break down the Twins winning Game 1 thanks to some great bullpen work, why the Twins' first base defense is in trouble, and why Connor Prielipp should be the first starting pitcher the Twins call up from AAA when the time comes. We'll talk about all that, but first, Cole Sands is going to become the Twins' primary closer. I feel like that's the vibe I've been getting from Derek Shelton, the bullpen usage and how things have been working out. We're finding more and more about how Shelton views the bullpen and this unique circumstance of the Twins' 2026 bullpen through the first couple weeks of the season, including late game, high leverage situations. First of all, what the heck is Kody Funderburk's role? That's insane. Quick stat from Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic when it comes to Kody Funderburk. He made his 7th appearance of the season on Monday night, tied with Juan Rincon in 2004 and Ron Peronsky in 1969 for the most in Twins history through 10 games. So clearly they like him in that firefighter role and trying to move him around. And then you look at Eric Orze, another one who gets a lot of high leverage situations and has had a save opportunity throughout the year. But it really does feel like as the Twins go on, Cole Sands is the guy that they're going to go to more often than not. And it's not that Cole Sands is going to be the only person who ever gets save situations. Even when the Twins bullpen had Duran and Stewart and Jax and all of those guys, they still, Duran was the primary closer, but they still had a few other guys mix in and getting late game save opportunities. And you could very well see that happening here with this current Twins group as well, in that you see Cole Sands be the primary closer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Funderburk or Orze or Taylor Rogers, Justin Topa, all wouldn't be in line for save opportunities should they come up. And I think I just want to take a look at the Twins bullpen as a whole before we take the deep dive into Cole Sands. If you go from the trade deadline of last year to the end of last season, the Twins bullpen had a negative 2.9 win probability added, which was 28th in baseball. Their 4.93 ERA from the bullpen was 27th in that span. A 4.32 fielding independent pitching was 21st, so it wasn't as egregious, but still pretty egregious. And take a look at now. The Twins bullpen, albeit it's through 10 games. We are a 16th of the way through the season. It's not a indictment. It's not a pass of the bullpen, but they have a negative 0.36 win probability added. That's 17th in baseball. A 4.93 ERA is 22nd. A 5.02 fielding independent pitching is also 22nd. So this bullpen kind of hovers around the 17th through 22nd mark in baseball, and that's not good by any stretch. But I think if you were to poll Twins fans at the beginning of the season, they would talk about this bullpen being the worst in baseball on a bullet. And I'm not saying that they've dodged that. That still could very well happen as the season goes on. But for now, again, at quote unquote full strength through the first couple weeks of the season, they've at least been able to hold their own. And there's been a couple games here and there. You could look at Sunday afternoon's loss, I should say, to Tampa Bay, where Justin Topa gave up 3 runs in the top of the 10th inning. But you could blame that loss more squarely on the offense not being able to get it done. And a couple of those losses are the same way, where the bullpen doesn't have the best outing, but their offense didn't really give them run support anyway. So were they really going to win the game? Is the bullpen at fault? Yes, they are, but not as much fault as you'd maybe give them in a normal circumstance. But again, that's not to say the Twins bullpen has been great. they've just been better than expectations, but that expectation was one of the worst in baseball. So, it passes the test, but it's not like the test was very hard. You know what I'm saying? So the Twins, going back to kind of where they viewed this bullpen, if you look at who Derek Shelton prioritizes in terms of the average leverage index, this is where you start to see why Cole Sands kind of has the edge for the Twins. If you just look at win probability added, Eric Orze is the Twins' highest win probability added member. He has three in his starts this season, I should say. He has a 0.27 win probability added. Kody Funderburk, 0.23. Cole Sands, 0.22. Anthony Banda, 0.06. And then you have Zach Kent, Cody Lawyerson, Taylor Rogers, Justin Topa, all in the negatives on win probability added. And Mick Abel is also on this list as a reliever, but I'm not counting him in the grand scheme of things. So for the Twins, that's the win probability added. But if we want to look at how Shelton is prioritizing it, win probability added is basically results. If you want to look at how Shelton views them going in, you look at the average leverage index, which you can find on Fangraphs, and it tells you basically that Cole Sands has an average leverage index of 1.89, which is highest on the Twins, and a clear margin from a 1.5 from Eric Orze in second place, and a 1.26 from Kody Funderburk, ranked third, and then Justin Topa ranked fourth if you take out Mick Abel at 1.08. So again, somebody like Anthony Banda has a positive win probability added, but he's sixth on the team in terms of the leverage index, which means that he does good in the role he's given, but he's not being trusted in super big situations, whereas Cole Sands doesn't have the best win probability added, but that's partially because he's pitching in big situations. So if he's not right on top of his game, well, then that's going to knock down the win probability added, because all it basically is you've seen these charts, whether it's a Twins game, a Vikings game, Wolves game, what have you, where it shows like, oh, this team in the fourth quarter had a 99% chance of winning and they lost. And it's that little graph that kind of shows where the pinpoints are going throughout the game. And basically that's just when a pitcher comes in, there's where the win probability is for a team. And when the pitcher leaves, does the team's probability go up or down? And if it does, by how much? And they just track that. And the leverage index basically just says how important of a situation is your pitcher getting put in. And Cole Sands being the Twins' number one makes me think that he is going to get a bulk of the save opportunities this season for the Twins. Now, Cole Sands, if you want to take a look at the stats, is a 2.45 ERA through 3 games so far in 2026, a 39.1% whiff rate that's in the 91st percentile, and is crushing his career average. So he's getting swings and misses this year like he never has before, which is a great sign to see. Again, albeit in a 3-game sample size for him and a 10-game sample size for the league generally. Doesn't get guys to chase, though, typically. So if they're swinging and missing, it's at pitches in the zone, which means that when he does get hit, he gets hit hard. A 98.6 mile per hour exit velocity is in the bottom 1 percentile, which is bad, albeit again, small sample size. And this is where I think when you look at Cole Sands, the fact that he was going to be the guy, division series, game 1, you have a 5-3 lead in the bottom of the 8th inning. Who's warming up? It's Cole Sands. He's the guy that Derek Shelton was going to have go in the game. And he ended up not coming in because the Twins were able to muster through a couple runs thanks to a Caratini single, which, hey, shout out to the team finally getting with runners in scoring position. That certainly helps. So I just think when you look at how successful Sands has been this year, albeit small sample size, he's been successful in his limited outings, and his leverage index is the highest for the Twins throughout the first couple weeks. And it just kind of shows that right now to start the year, they are giving Cole Sands every opportunity to take that closer role, even if it's not an every night thing. And look, he hasn't had a great career in these high leverage situations. In fact, he's never had a year of a positive win probability added. So far, so good this year, but in his full seasons, he's never had a win probability added be above 0. And the Twins have been begging for him to take these opportunities over the last couple of years, and he hasn't been able to make the most of them. But this is his best chance, and he's going to get the red carpet to be the first one to try and take on that role, and it's up to him to see if they can do it. All right, well, we are going to talk more about the Minnesota Twins, including how their first base defense could be the worst in baseball by the end of the season, but why it's actually not as bad as you think right now. We're going to talk about that and more coming up after this. The NBA playoffs are here, and where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. So here's what I like about it. You can just bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. And the app makes it so easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, matchups, all in one place to do the research you need to make the best bet possible. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. There's no load management anymore. You got to try and sift through all of the details, all of the data to get the best pick possible. And it just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Personalization. Use the website to look up current lines and personalize your audience. So you can look at all of that and how the FanDuel app makes it the thing that you want to do. You can look up their website. You can find the current lines. You can find the odds. You can do whatever you need to get it to the people you want to know. If your audience is your friends, if your buddies, whatever it is that you want to talk about, they are the people right there. And the FanDuel app makes it so easy to do all of that. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Baseball is finally back, and to celebrate, I'm giving you a full month of the Everydayer Club for free. Just go to lockedontwins.supercast.com and use code FINALLY. You'll unlock every episode ad-free and get access to our private listener group chat. Tap the link in the show notes and use code FINALLY, FINALLY, to claim your free month. All right, so the Twins' first base defense is going to be the worst in baseball, and it's not going to get better for a while. Now, that being said, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They've actually been better than expected, despite the anecdotal game on Thursday in Kansas City, where everybody saw how much the first baseman struggled for the Twins, and that happened a little bit over the weekend as well against Tampa Bay. But overall, let's just go through the numbers and see what they say. So the Twins have had just one error at first base through the first 10 games of the season. But they've had a 0 fielding run value in the first week plus of the season that ranks 17th in baseball. They're also 17th with a 0 range score. 12th through 18th, because everybody's all tied in that same spot together, with 0 outs above average from first baseman in 2026. And again, clustered in with a bunch of teams in that 18th through 27th range, all tied with -1 defensive runs saved. So the numbers aren't quite as bad as they look on TV, but over the course of the season, you're going to see things kind of differentiate themselves. And I think it's going to stick out like a sore thumb and sink to the bottom of baseball. Now, you can look at guys like Bryce Harper. They already have a -3 outs above average throughout the early part of the season, which is not a great sign. But the thing that players like Bryce Harper can do is hit the cover off the ball to where, yeah, you care about their defense, but also they're just such a good hitter, you kind of can just ignore it. And I don't think the Twins are at that stage at all with how their first basemen are. And I just think over the course of the season, even though the Twins have been able to paper over their first base issues, I think it's just going to kind of culminate in a bad first base defensive season for the Minnesota Twins. So again, let's break down the 3 main first basemen the Twins are going to use over the course of the 2026 season. Victor Caratini, their second best first baseman on the roster, which again, not quite saying much. He had a -1 outs above average in 2025. Right now, a 0 outs above average in 2026. Okay, fine, but he's not going to be your primary guy anyways. How about Kody Clemens, the guy who ends up probably being your best first baseman fielding wise, but that's not necessarily saying a lot, especially because the fielding for Kody Clemens has been volatile over the course of his career. He was +3 outs above average at first base in 2025, but it's fluctuated from that +3 mark to a -1 mark over the course of his career, whether it's with Detroit, whether it's with Philadelphia. Last year with the Twins, of course, was very good defensively at first base, to the point where the Twins had a lot of belief in Clemens this winter, where they only brought in Josh Bell as competition at first base. And I think the initial plan was kind of to let Josh Bell be the DH, and Kody Clemens plays a lot at first base. Now, we'll see how much that actually happens as the season goes on, but you're going to see a lot of Kody Clemens and Vic Caratini playing first base for the Twins. But the thing about Kody Clemens is there's no guarantee that he is a Twin by the end of the season if he doesn't find a way to continue his 2025 hitting pace. And the jury's still out on that. They call it career years for a reason. Is this a breakout season for Kody Clemens or a career season? And there's a distinction in those two. Career year means you're never going to hit that high again. Breakout season means that's the new normal for you. So what's that going to be? And again, just defensively for Clemens, he can be somebody who's a plus defender, but also there could be seasons where he's a minus defender and he's not helping out your team. And with an infield, and for all these guys, that consists of Luke Keyshaw, who's not the best second baseman defensively, Royce Lewis, who's not a great defensive third baseman, and Brooks Lee, who has really struggled at shortstop with his range. There's just, and had a tough play on a ground ball up the middle on Monday night's game. There's just a lot going on there for their first baseman. They have a heavy workload. It's not easy for them. You don't have prime Carlos Correa at shortstop, and you don't have Adrian Beltre out there at third base. You don't have, prime Brian Dozier out there at second. So you are going to have to kind of figure this out on the fly. For Josh Bell, your other option, again, he's got to hit to be impactful, because this is a dude that's been a -14 outs above average over the course of his career. Like, that's how bad it's been for him. And he's only been a plus outs above average defender at first base just once in his career. And that was way back in 2021. And the thing about the Twins, you look at those three guys and you go, well, is there any help on the way? Who could join them? There's not a lot. Eric Wagaman is somebody who could step in and play a little bit of first base, right-handed hitter. That could help you out. He was a -1 defender at first base a year ago, so he could provide you some help. But it's not like he's going to come in there and all of a sudden be scooping everything left and right and providing you a really great high caliber defense. He'll kind of be just another guy that maybe he'll catch fire and kind of play well over the course of a small sample size. But again, there's not a lot to get excited about in Wagaman if he comes up and tries to do that. Aaron Sabato, former first round pick, might be something there if you're looking at the Greg Media guide for the Twins. But really, with Aaron Sabato, 2020 first round pick out of North Carolina, I mean, there's nothing really there with him. He's got one hit through his first 2 games, 76 mile per hour average exit velocity off his hits. They've been negative in the launch angle, so he's been grounded, like turfing them immediately. There's just not a lot to really look at Aaron Sabato and think that he can do something for the Minnesota Twins. So there's really nothing you can do in 2026 to figure it out. Now, the good news is long-term, there's always an answer. You can always find a first baseman, as the Twins learned with, Josh Bell was on the market. You also had guys like Rhys Hoskins on the market and a bunch of other guys. And there's always going to be a veteran hitters who can be a first base DH type mix. So it's not like they're never going to be able to find one in 2027. But that being said, the Twins didn't really make it a huge priority this year. But what's leading us to believe that it's actually going to be a priority in the future? So I don't know. It all assumes that they're willing to spend on the position, and not that they need to spend big money. That's not what I'm saying. But can they go out and get somebody who's a little bit better defender than Josh Bell next year? That remains to be seen. We'll find out if that can happen. So even though the numbers don't bear it out right now, the Twins defense is going to be worse and worse as the season goes on at first base and be one of Major League Baseball's worst units, even though the numbers show that they're just a below average defense right now at first base. And with no help on the way, it's up to Caratini and Clemens to figure something out for the Twins in 2026. Because otherwise I got nothing. I don't know where you go from here. I don't know where those answers are outside of somebody outside of the organization. Now, like Kody Clemens, he was a trade that the Twins got in May because they just needed a body because they had injuries. So there could be a situation where Clemens and Caratini are banged up and you do need to go get another first baseman, and maybe you do find that diamond in the rough. So that is a possibility for the team, but I just don't see it. So that's where things sit with the Twins in the, I just don't see it happening right now. And I don't see it necessarily automatically fixing itself and them striking gold with a player like Kody Clemens again in 2026. At the very least, the odds are stacked against you. All right, we are going to wrap up the show by talking a little down on the farm action and how Connor Prielipp should be the first Twins starting pitcher called up when the opportunity presents itself. I'll explain why right after this.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance, because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
So Connor Prielipp, remember how I was talking about how he should be a bullpen arm for the Twins to start the year, and they shouldn't waste their time being a starter? Well, through the first two starts of the year, Connor Prielipp has made me look foolish. He should be the first Twin called up when they need another starting pitcher. Now, I don't think that this is imminent. I don't think there's anything outside of maybe one more Bailey Ober blow-up start. That's maybe the only time you could see that happening, barring an injury, which for pitchers can happen at any moment. But when you look at Connor Prielipp, I think he should be the first call the Twins give to a prospect when they need to make a move to bring somebody up to the rotation. Now, the reason I think this mainly is because there are question marks with his status as a starter or as a reliever. Now, I think long-term Connor Prielipp just makes more sense as a reliever because of the injury issues, because of the workload stuff. And I just don't know. There really hasn't been a track record of him doing it in the minors at all. How do we expect him to do it as a starting pitcher? So that part just concerns me. And I think the stuff with Prielipp is so good when you look at the fastball and the changeup, what he can do. There's really good stuff with Prielipp, and I don't want to lose it because we keep chasing as an organization. The Twins keep chasing this kind of this vision of him being a starter, and it just might not be a reality. But that being said, the way Prielipp has been going, he does deserve the opportunity. So he's pitching in AAA for the first time in his career this season, starting on the opening day roster, and through two starts, again, small sample size, but through two starts, does have a 1.23 ERA, only allowed one run through 7 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts. It's a good line. Good. He's taking care of it. And again, you got to keep in mind the independent league, especially the independent league West, is a very offensive heavy league. So there is going to be opportunities for hitters, and for Prielipp right now to keep things low, certainly going to help things out as well. Again, I think he's had maybe one home start this year, so it's not like it's been a ton, but as the season goes on, also keep that in mind. But with Prielipp's injury history, I just feel like you need to know. You need to call him up to the big leagues. You need to give him the first opportunity because you need to know if he's going to be a starting pitcher or not. Can his arm hold up in the major leagues? Can he make multiple starts in the big leagues week in, week out, and keep himself healthy and keep his stuff as nasty as it's been in the minors? And those questions just aren't going to be answered in AAA, or at least not answered in full. And so I think he needs to be the first call up because you just need to know. And if he gets called up and he struggles, or the stuff falls off, or God forbid he gets hurt, well, now you kind of know that, okay, like we've been trying and it's just not going to work. Why don't, when you get healthy, we move you to bullpen? And I think that option's still alive. I think that that works. But that being said, there's also a world where Prielipp gets up there and he pitches really well and he can hang on and he can keep himself healthy and he becomes the pitcher the Twins drafted him out of Alabama in the second round. There was never a question of the talent and with the stuff with Connor Prielipp. It was just always the injury concerns. So if he gets up to the big leagues and stays relatively healthy and pitches really well, well, hey, there you go. He's been able to pitch really well. And if not, and he can't handle it or his stuff doesn't stick, well, now you move him to the bullpen and let him go max effort for 15 pitches, and you can have him stay more healthy in the bullpen. Prielipp is on the 40-man roster, so it's not a huge Band-Aid to rip off with his major league debut. He got drafted in 2022? So he's been in the minors for a while. It's not like this is a guy you're protecting with age. And he came out of college. So this is a guy you can bring up pretty quickly. It's not a huge deal like you're calling up a 20-year-old pitching prospect. And I think with guys like Zebby Matthews, he's had a pretty slow start to the year. His stuff through spring training in the early part of the AAA calendar, not the sharpest for him. So it's not like maybe he's your first call up because seniority, but I don't think that should be the case just with how rough he's looked. He has an ERA of 12 through his first two starts. Again, small sample size, but reward Prielipp for how well he started. And by the way, it's also been really great for Andrew Morris, who's had literally equal stats with ERA, with runs allowed, with innings. I mean, they've both been very, very similar, but I think Prielipp has showed the swing and miss ability with the 9 strikeouts to 4 walks, where there just hasn't been the same amount of walks with Andrew Morris. And I think that, again, when you look at Prielipp having the most unique stuff and the most kind of volatile path when it comes to, he could be a reliever, he could be a big time starter. It's kind of anywhere in between. And you just need to know, whereas I think Andrew Morris, again, you kind of know the highs and the lows a little bit more. You have even the highs aren't as high, but the lows aren't as low. It's a little bit more refined. And I think you need to give Prielipp the nod. 1, because you just need to know information about him at the major league level. And 2, he's pitching well. And he's been the better pitcher out of the two, slightly, but he's been the best pitcher for the Saints through their first couple runs through the starting rotation. You should reward that if you're the Twins. And you have information that you need to find out about him. And that's just where it feels like, and again, I'm not saying anything's imminent, but when that day does come, assuming things are on the track they are, Connor Prielipp should be the first call, because you need to find out if he can hack it at the major league level. And you also need guys who can show that potential. And he has through the first part of it. So you need to find out if he can handle being a major leaguer. And if not, you move him to the bullpen. And also, he's just pitched well enough to earn himself the first call up out of this entire group. So it would continue the run of young, talented pitchers that are expected to make their debuts this year. When you look at Prielipp, when you look at Morris, when you look at Klein, there's a bunch of different names, Kendry Rojas. There's a lot of intriguing starting pitching options the Twins have to choose from, and it'll work itself out as the season goes along. Injuries are going to play a factor in AAA and AA in the majors. So you kind of have to see what happens. We can talk about how great Prielipp is, and if he gets hurt in AAA, well, then, it's a moot point. We're talking about Andrew Morris and Zebby Matthews. But again, the injury history of Connor Prielipp just makes me feel like you can't waste those bullets in AAA. If he's healthy and pitching well and an opportunity pops up, he just needs to be the guy to take that, because you can't risk him getting hurt in AAA and then you still find anything out about him at the major league level. Get him into the majors and see what happens for him. So there is an injury risk, but the Twins do need to take advantage of the hot start from Connor Prielipp and have him be that first starter called up from the big leagues when the opportunity does present itself. I think, again, long-term, he does end up that high leverage, big time reliever for the Twins where his stuff can play, where his fastball, his slider, his changeup, again, he's just a 3-pitch pitcher, where that all can work at high. He could just become, a fastball slider guy or something along those lines, or a slider changeup guy, whatever you want to say. There is that opportunity for him as a reliever. I think that's the most likely path, just given his circumstances, but he deserves every opportunity to become a starting pitcher for this team. And right now he's making the most of it. And if a spot becomes available, it just feels like he's the right guy to give that first opportunity to. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into today's Locked On Twins. Tomorrow, we'll get the latest from tonight's game against the Detroit Tigers. Tarik Skubal versus Taj Bradley. I'm excited to see how Taj goes in his third start this season. Also, how Byron Buxton can thrive in the leadoff spot like he did on Monday night. So make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Twins so you get all the latest episodes. You can find me on X at BombCJ30. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Twins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedontwins.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. I'm CJ Baumgartner. See ya.